You know, niggas gotta get their priorities together. Got their mind on the wrong things, spending their money in the wrong way.
Trapaholics, real trap shit.
Say you need that car with the rims and a trunk, just like Jim. It's more than life. Yeah.
I'm telling you. Talk to him.
Say you need that LV bag with the belt and the hat.
That's all you got though.
It's more than life. Yeah.
Talk to him. Real.
Say you wanna turn up at the club, light some bottles, impress them girls. It's more than life.
Fucking everybody.
Yeah.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
Good at everybody, and good evening, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And I'm Ethan Emmons, and today we have more main course for you, and we have some New Orleans Saints talk for you. And with that, can I get a menu? And at first, I just want to get into some Sean Payton thoughts on Sean Payton with his resignation for you, because I don't think most people out there really have my thoughts on him, like leaving. Before I get into kind of the news that broke on like the three teams that have thought about trading for you, or the three teams that maybe he's thinking about going to when he thinks about coming back. And really, once again, if you continue listening to my podcast, I think you'll learn pretty fast that when it comes to most things, I'm always gonna be in the minority. I'm not gonna agree with what most people agree with. And when he left, when he decided to leave, I don't know if you could say I was surprised. I don't think like I was like blown away, and I don't know if you could say that I was upset by it, but I was not like down at my feet and like giving his roses and kissing his butt out the door, and you know, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for all the things Sean Payton did while he was our head coach, and all the prominence he brought to the Saints once he got here in 2006, and everything he's done for the Saints in the city of New Orleans, and bringing the team a Super Bowl, and all the wins that he's brought the Saints, and everything he's done. But when it comes to the New Orleans Saints, I'm a Saints fan first. I'm not a Sean Payton fan. And once he decided to leave, like, okay, that's fine. You're done with us, I'm done with you. Like that's fine, man. You don't want to help us out anymore, then that's cool. Like, on to the next head coach. That's cool. Like, Dennis Allen's our head coach now. You're not our head coach anymore. Like, that's fine. And I kind of felt that with him leaving when he did, we were kind of in a tight spot. He kind of left us out to dry, hanging, you know. We just had not a losing season, but a season when, after 4 seasons in a row, winning the South 17, 18, 19, and 20, 4 years in a row, making the playoffs, winning the NFC South, he decided to up and leave, and finally not making it. He kind of left us out to dry, you know, and no Drew Brees anymore. Like, he kind of left us hanging, and I really didn't appreciate that. And when it finally got hard, no Drew Brees anymore, like that ain't cool. Like, once it finally got a little hard, he just kind of said deuces, and I don't know. I feel like he didn't want to tough it out anymore, and I don't know. That just didn't sit very well with me. And then, man, I watch. I can't believe I actually did. I say all this, and then I actually watched his hour-long resignation speech. Maybe it was even longer than that. And man, he put on a heck of a show when it came to his resignation speech. And I think some of it was genuine, but we all, if you've been a fan of Sean Payton and been a fan of the New Orleans Saints the entire time he's been the head coach, he can put on an act now. He can put on the waterworks like he's like Denzel Washington, man. He can cry on command. And man, he's already going to be in the studio as a commentator or a broadcaster. Like, if he wasn't doing that, man, he should go to Hollywood because I think some of it was sincere, but I, I think he loves that. I think he loves the attention. I think he loves to put on a show, and I he's got always got a story to tell when he's got a camera on him, and you know, I, I it just not all of it set real with me, but I got that to say, but I also got to say I love Sean Payton, and maybe I got that ex-girlfriend Phil where I hate it because I hate to see him go, but I wish he was still here at the same time, but like he ain't here anymore, so on to the next. But with that said, you know how I feel about it, but let's get into the three teams that he supposedly wants to go to, or the three teams that most likely want to trade for him. And first, I want to kind of get into what his stipulations for the teams that he would maybe want to go to. And I find this pretty funny because he wants like full control, roster control, or full roster autonomy, warm weather, and a competitive roster. And man, that cracks me up because isn't that exactly what he had when he was in New Orleans? I mean, full roster control or full roster autonomy. I mean, you could maybe argue that was kind of split right down the middle between him and Mickey Loomis, but he pretty much had that when he was here. Okay. Warm weather, I'm pretty sure it doesn't get much hotter in New Orleans than it does anywhere else in the United States. So I don't know where that one goes from. And then competitive roster. I think before you could argue before the 2021 season that the Saints had one of the deepest, most talented, most veteran teams in the National Football League. The only thing you could maybe argue there, once again, argue there, is maybe the quarterback position was a little bit of a question mark because of Jameis and Drew Brees leaving, and obviously Drew Brees for Sean Payton's entire tenure was his quarterback, and Sean Payton just didn't want to have to deal with coaching a different quarterback. But for the majority of that list there, Sean Payton had all that. So why up and now would he want to go to a different team? But honestly, I think it's funny that Sean Payton hasn't even been out of coaching for even a year now, and he's already supposedly, I don't know where these rumors are really coming from, but he already is wanting to come back. And I kind of have a theory as to why you're kind of hearing that already. I think that he is looking at what the Saints, Mickey Loomis and Dennis Allen have built with the talent that they've already brought in with Chris Olave, Trevor Penning, their 2 first-round picks, bringing in Matthews and Jarvis Landry. I think he's jealous. Maybe he sees all that talent and potential in his maybe questioning his decision to leave the Saints. So I think he almost is questioning that decision, and maybe that's what's getting his competitive juices going. But I don't know. That's kind of my theory as to why he's already wanting to get back into it, and maybe he wants to show that he can do better than what the Saints have built without him. But uh, so what we have here is the three teams that have come up are the Cowboys, the Chargers, and the Dolphins. And first, I want to talk about the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy. And honestly, I kind of look at the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy as maybe the least likely team. A lot of people think it's the most likely, or maybe it's what I hope is they say the most likely. A lot of people say it's the most likely, but I hope is the least likely. But the thing is, I look at Mike McCarthy as very similar to Sean Payton because out of the three coaches, he's the only one that has a Super Bowl, and he is also like an offensive-minded, offensive coordinator type coach. And people like try to make fun of him because he has like weird like motivational tactics, like people talk about the monkey butt powder and the smashing of watermelons. Well, during the last couple of playoff runs, Sean Payton was doing weird things similar to that as well, like bringing in ex-players that had like their Super Bowl ring, having the $250,000 in like the faux like trophy case, trying to motivate his players in weird ways as well. So people kind of making fun of Mike McCarthy trying to motivate his weird players in weird ways. Well, he tried to do that and he ended up failing in the playoffs anyways and trying to do that. And Mike McCarthy in a similar way, trying to motivate his players in weird ways and still failing. So that sounds very similar when you lay out those things and still not being successful later in his career, and similar to Mike McCarthy doing those things. But the reason why, on top of that, Mike McCarthy and the Cowboys may be the least likely place that Sean Payton goes is probably, you've heard this probably quite a bit, it is because of Jerry Jones, and that first thing I stated on that list of wants is the full roster autonomy. And Jerry Jones pretty much acts as the Cowboys general manager and always wants to be down on the sideline, sticking his nose right into what's going on. And I just don't think I just don't think Sean Payton would want to deal with all that nonsense. And even though Sean Payton is a Bill Parcells disciple and he used to be a coordinator for him, an offensive coordinator for him when he was with the New York Giants, I find it hard for that to happen. And I also just find it a little hard for the Saints to want to trade Sean Payton in the NFC to where they'll have to see them close to, if they're winning, if they're constantly winning, if they're going to win and the Saints are going to be competitive winning the NFC South and the Cowboys are winning the NFC East, they'll almost be playing probably almost every other year, and the NFL will be wanting them to play almost every year. I just don't think the New Orleans Saints will want to trade him there, and I don't want to see him traded there because after the Falcons being one of their biggest rivals, the Cowboys are one of their biggest rivals as well. So on top of me not seeing that happen, I don't want to see it happen. So uh, I just hope that doesn't happen on top of me not seeing it happen. Okay, so the next one is the Chargers and Brandon Staley. And I on social media have seen this quite a few times out of Chargers fans and just other random fans. A lot of people think Brandon Staley is a great young head coach. Let's see here. Let's see. I don't know exactly how old he is. Uh, but uh, I think a lot of people, yeah, he's only 39 years old, and he's been their head coach. He was just their head coach last year. For some reason, I thought he'd been their head coach for a long time. So it's hard to predict sometimes how short of a leash a head coach has. So I guess it kind of depends on how successful he is this year. And so a lot of people think he's such a great head coach, but when you have such a talented quarterback as Justin Herbert is, which he's amazing. He, he's put up better stats than Patrick Mahomes has in his first two seasons, even though Patrick Mahomes didn't start his first year. So you got to kind of put a little bit of an asterisk on that. But so it definitely depends on if he makes the playoffs this year or not. But if he doesn't, I think there definitely will be an alarm going off there, and he will be in danger of losing his job. And if he does, I think Sean Payton will be a head candidate for taking his job. But I think a lot of people forget that he is the main reason. He is the main reason for them not making the playoffs last year because he choked. He choked that game away against the Raiders because he's all about the analytics, going for it on fourth down and going for it in the red zone and going for 2-point conversions. And there was a lot of that in the game against the Raiders. And I think a couple times in that game against the Raiders, but that was one of the best games all year. That was a fantastic game to watch. I think he went for it a couple times in the red zone and went for a couple 2-point conversions that he didn't get. And if he would have got those points, they would have won that game. But the main thing that ended up costing that game was in overtime. And all they had to do was tie. And both the Raiders and the Chargers would have made the playoffs. And with only 30 seconds to go, around the 45-yard line, kind of out of Carlson's range, the Raiders kicker range, the clock was running down, and it was fourth down. He decided to call a timeout, and Eckler, the Chargers running back, was talking to another player on the Raiders team, and it looked like they were talking about, oh, we're just going to let the clock run down. And instead, Staley called a timeout. For some odd reason, called a timeout as if he was going to get the ball back. The Raiders were they were going to stop them and get the ball back, and they were going to march down the field in 30 seconds and get a field goal or something and win the game. And instead, he called a timeout, and then the Raiders picked up the first down, got in field goal range, and Carlson won the game. And then they missed the playoffs because of that. So he made some boneheaded plays in that game that ended up costing them the game in the playoffs. And that was that drive before that in the fourth quarter. That got them to overtime was one of the craziest drives I've ever seen by Justin Herbert. He picked up like 3 or 4 fourth downs to tie the game. That completely went to waste because of Brandon Staley. So as far as I'm concerned, if he keeps making those decisions that are decided off of analytics and making boneheaded plays because of that, he won't last much longer. And when you got a guy like Sean Payton out there that's available to be traded for, uh, he's on a hotter seat than a lot of Chargers fans know. So, and he's in the AFC. So, in my opinion, I'd rather him be traded for than Mike McCarthy. So then on to Mike McDaniels and the Miami Dolphins. And this is a weird one for me. And this is one that people think is, I've heard this talked about, that the Dolphins owner uh, has never has never traded or never cut or never fired a coach after before 3 years. He's always given a coach at least 3 years before firing them. So that's kind of an interesting stat, but I don't know. Mike McDaniels is he's been a running backs coach before he became the offensive coordinator of the 49ers. That's where he came from. I'd never heard of him before he became the coach of the 49ers. He was a running backs coach and then a running back coordinator and then the offensive coordinator of the 49ers. And I think it's an interesting hire by the Miami Dolphins because they're wanting to improve Tua Tagovailoa so much. They want to improve his improve him as a quarterback and improve the passing game of the Dolphins so much. But then they hire a head coach that's biggest skill is the running game. So that's why that's kind of a confusing hire to me. On top of the fact that the only time I ever experienced any like interview of him was when he went on the Pat McAfee show and he was just like sarcastic and trying to be funny and not serious. And I understand that's what he was trying to do when he was on there, but it was just really, and none of it was over my head. I understand what he was trying to do, but I don't know. It was just really, really hard to take the guy serious, you know? Like if he was like maybe like a defensive coordinator and a assistant coach at a different position, I could have lived with how he was talking to Pat McAfee, but as a head coach, it was really hard to take him serious with the way he was talking on there. He was just I don't know. It was he was just too childish, you know, as someone in a position of power, how sarcastic and not serious he was on there. Like I don't know. Just these young head coaches nowadays, it's hard to take them serious sometimes. And really, the hiring of him almost feels like he's a placeholder for a Sean Payton almost. And considering the Miami Dolphins have multiple first round picks, they almost seem like the perfect team to trade for Sean Payton. And if the if the New Orleans Saints are willing to trade Sean Payton, I would want at least multiple first round picks or at least a first and a second, maybe a player. So and out of all the teams that the Saints would trade Sean Payton to, I think it would be the Miami Dolphins. And definitely, if anything, I would hope it's either the Chargers or the Miami Dolphins. So those are the three teams: the Cowboys, the Dolphins, and the Chargers. And I think with that's really all I got with the three teams that you have, and that's my opinion on Sean Payton and his resignation. And with that, can I get a check, please?